ओम सदाशिवसमारम्भां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Yes, Guru Parampara includes Patanjali also as a yoga acharya, and today lot of stuff we'll be covering about yoga. So what we did last time about the Yama Niyamas, the Yamas we had last time. Any questions or clarifications, or it's all very clear? Simple in some ways, just question of values. Any questions on that, or shall we go ahead?
You can go ahead, Swamiji.
Okay. Then we will do the niyamas. Remember here the yama and niyamas are more in number than what is mentioned in the classical works on yoga. But it is in harmony with some of the yoga Upanishads, because a few more are mentioned here. The more the merrier, okay? स्नानं शौचं ऋतुः सत्यं जपो होमश्च तर्पणं तपो दानं तितिक्षा च नमस्कारः प्रदक्षिणं व्रत उपवासा आदिश्चान्ये कायिका नियमस्मृताः. After the yamas, he is talking about the niyamas. Okay, what is to be done? Okay, what is to be done? Okay, what is that? Snanam. Don't have to be told. Okay, snanam. But in case, just in case, there are some great logicians available who says, what is the use of having a bath every day, etc. Okay, snanam. Shaucham, cleanliness. We are not saying it should be spick and span, but hygienic, healthy. Okay, don't have to explain much on it. Okay. Krutu Satyam. Krutu Satyam is your worship. What is to be done in terms of yoga yagadi. Okay. So all of them, all your nitya naimitika karmas in terms of religion. Okay. Worshipping. Religion with respect to Ishvara. Okay. Yeah. Worshipping. Which can involve japa. The japa that you do, like today is Surya Grahana, great day to do japa, whatever japa. Either if you are initiated into Gayatri, the Gayatri. If you are not initiated into Gayatri or have not taken it from me or someone, then whatever mantra any guru has given you, use that. The more you do, the better it is. In fact, if you do it on a Grahanam day, it's supposed to be 100 times more effective. Therefore, do that. Somebody has also asked me what all rules and regulations to follow during Grahanam. I don't do much. Okay, so it's better that you don't eat in that time. Expose yourself to unnecessary radiations, or the food that you eat to unnecessary radiations of the sun. Don't expose yourself too much. Don't look at the sun with the naked eye. Minimum basic things you do. And since the radiations affect your body and this etc., don't eat during this period of Grahanam at least. Though people say 3 hours before and all that stuff, but at least during the period don't eat. So Grahanam gets over at 1:30 anyway. After that you can have a wash, have a bath if possible, and have your lunch etc. But in the time after the class, do some japa and things like that. That's very good. Therefore, that's what I'm saying. Japa. Okay. Homasya. Those of us who know or how or can do it, or at least take part in some of the homas that happen during special occasions, etc. Homaha. Tarpanam. Tarpanam is the water that you offer to the ancestors, etc. In some families you do it every month on Amavasya day or on their Tithi day, or once a year on their Tithi day, or if you don't know all that, in the couple of weeks, the Paksha before Navratri starts, good time to do all that. Tarpana, acknowledging our ancestors, etc. Tapas. Tapas can include all growth activities. Stepping out of your comfort zone, learning to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. That's all concerned with your growth. because we are too, the more civilized a society becomes, so-called civilized, okay, the more you think you control the environment and you want everything to your satisfaction. You want everything to your satisfaction, the weather, the temperature, the everything. Therefore, hey, you don't control everything. The COVID has taught that lesson very well. Okay, you don't control everything. Therefore, learn not to be so dependent on your environment. Learn to be independent, and you have that inner environment which is fine in spite of what is outside. Therefore, that is called tapas. Dhanam. Okay, after the grahan has gone, is a good time to do some dhanam. Okay, for punya, etc. Or dhanam in terms of sharing, opening your heart out to people less fortunate than you are. And a very interesting story about this dhanam thing, of how nobody is too small to help somebody however great he is. The story more than 5000 BC or whatever. Rama with his Vanara Sena was marching towards Lanka. And they came to Rameshwaram. Now they have to cross the sea. So no problems. The huge monkeys lifted big boulders, etc., and dropped them directly into the sea. Hanuman, Sugriva, Angada, etc., directly tossed a whole mountain into the sea. The smaller monkeys carried rocks, stones, etc. There is a small squirrel there. He says, in what way can I help Rama? I am such a tiny being. But I would like to help. I would like to be part of this great endeavor, this great adventure that Rama is on, of attacking the Rakshasa base and finishing it off. The source of terrorism in those years, okay, those years also we had terrorists. The terrorists were Rakshasas. So, destroying, surgical strike, destroying the very base itself, the source of all terrorism, uprooting the king and installing a much nobler king there. But I also want to take part in it. I also want to help Rama. What can I do? Because squirrel, tiny thing, can carry only a nut. Nothing more than that. So he decided all these stones are being kept in place. You should put some soil in between so that they don't shake when Rama's army marches across. Now how to carry soil? So he went, dipped himself into the sea, rolled on the beach so the sand stuck to his body, then went back onto the bridge and had another dip so that the sand will fall off near the rocks and hold the rocks in place. He kept on doing it repeatedly, one dip after another dip after. So for one round, a few little bit of soil will go in. And he kept doing it, until Rama saw what was happening. Warrior like him, observant of everything that's happening. Nothing gets past him. And it is said he was so appreciative of the squirrel that he lifted the squirrel and patted him on the back. Nicely patted him on the back. And left 3 stripes on the squirrel as a mark acknowledging his contribution. And that is why it seems every squirrel down from that time onwards have their 3 stripes on their back. It's a story, probably a folk tale, highlighting the importance of dhanam. In what way can I contribute? What way can I contribute to a nation building effort? In what way can I contribute to the society? In what way can I contribute to the people around me? We give what we have. That's it. We share what we have. Dhanam. Titiksha. Very important. Especially lockdown, families are being locked up together. Titiksha, ability to put up with the pinpricks of life. The pinpricks that other people may give you also. Families, होता है. Lot of pinpricks will come from families only. Okay, so those things. Titiksha, sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam. To be able to put up with the difficulties of life without seeking revenge. Chinta vilapa rahitam. Without worrying about it, without cribbing about it. It's so hot, there is no rain. It's hot, correct. And humid, yeah, hot and humid. Do what you can about it. Don't crib. Stop cribbing. Stop cribbing, start living, okay? Not stop worrying, start living. Stop cribbing and start living, okay? Titiksha. Cha namaskaraha. Prostration to the Lord, etc. Pradikshanam, going around the temple, etc. Vrataha. Okay? Vrataha. Okay? Austerities. Okay? Upavasa, fasting, etc. Like the Surya Grahanam, Ekadashi, Amavasya, etc. are good days to fast. They just picked up some things. Okay? Because your inside will get some clearance, will get some rest, and it's also a good discipline to be able to say no. So what is fasting? Somebody asked me in yesterday's class, what are all we allowed to have in fasting? Well, traditionally speaking, fasting only water. There is one Ekadashi called Nirjala Ekadashi. That is called Bhima. That's also called Bhima Ekadashi. Because when Bhima did anything, it was huge. There was no half measures with Bhima. Okay, Bhima the Pandava. There is no half measures with him. So Bhima Ekadashi, 24-hour fast, no water also. Okay. Yeah. This is Upavasa, fasting. Okay. So no water also. But the ancients were wise. They knew it is good to keep yourself hydrated. Therefore, water was allowed. So, really speaking, in fasting, water. And they made some compromises. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's not easy for people to do that. Therefore, tea, coffee, buttermilk, etc., lime juice or something. Not all fruit juices, okay? Something simple like this, allowed. Panakam, etc., allowed. Then there are people with health problems, acidity, etc. Therefore, they made a further compromise. Fruits allowed. Not hog yourself on 50 fruits throughout the fasting day, but one or two. Fruits allowed. Anything more, not allowed. It's not fast after that, okay? You don't have fast food. No, but this is made from Rajgira. It is not made from rice. Don't tell me that stuff. Okay? No. You're not supposed to have. Okay? People do. In fact, in some communities like the Maharashtrian, the Gujarati, etc., fast food is very delicious. You eat more. Farahar and all that stuff, you eat more during fasting than during normal days. No. Fasting is a discipline of learning to say no to your sensuous needs, no to your hunger and thirst. Therefore, important to see that and follow that, not make compromises. Okay. So if you are fasting, do it like this. But you may not be able to do, like when I first started fasting, I couldn't do all that. Therefore, you start by missing a meal. One meal you will miss. Not that you are going to make it up at another meal. Okay, no. Like I knew this guy who would, every Monday he would fast. Meaning, whole day is hungry, doesn't eat anything. Dinner he will have. So this is in one of the smaller towns in India. So there is this restaurant famous for his thali meal. So a friend of mine and I walked in to have a thali meal. And this guy also sitting there. And you know, small towns, you share tables. So he's sitting opposite. So my friend and I, we both had a thali. And we are paying the bill and walking off. Now this guy was there before us. So he finished his thali and he asked for a second thali. I said, wow, what is that? Why second thali? I said, kya ho gaya? Because the thali is pretty big, you know. One thali is a huge meal. No, because I've been fasting today. I have to make up the calorie count, you know. No. You don't have to make it up. The fasting is meant to deprive yourself of some calories. Not meant to be made up at the next meal. Okay? Therefore, these are all upavasa, fasting, etc. Vrata is any vow you take in a spiritual context, in a religious context, that I will do this on this day. Every Ekadashi I'll do this, or every Thursday I'll read Vishnu Sahasranama. Any vrata, any commitment you take. Why? It helps you to develop your integrity. Make a commitment and you keep it consistently for years. For years you keep it. Therefore, all that is called vratam and upavasadi. Anye kayika niyamaha. There can be many others also, he says. Many others also. So, certain things that you do to develop yourself as a person. Look at all of them. It helps you grow in terms of your inner environment, in terms of your mind, learning to say no to yourself, learning some self-discipline. Because one of the most things important in life, if you want to achieve anything, whether it's spiritual goals or worldly goals, it's a sense of discipline. Therefore, what you are doing here is cultivating that discipline, that will that is necessary for discipline. Okay? By doing all this and earning some punya also, because you have done all the right things. Therefore, some merit is coming to you, some punya is coming to you, because you have done all the right things. Therefore, this is how this is the base for yoga. Okay, yama niyama is the base for yoga. After that, other things start. Okay. Then the third thing. Any questions on this, or shall we go ahead? All clear, na? Very simple. Any questions? Please ask.
No, Swamiji.
Okay, then I will go ahead. Okay. Now, after yama and niyama comes asana, the third limb of yoga. Okay, the third anga, where he doesn't give any elaborate descriptions, he just mentions some of them and goes ahead. Okay. Now, an asana is a particular way of maintaining your body. What in English is called a pose. Pose has got other ramifications, but whatever. How to place your body and your limbs in a particular manner is called an asana. Okay? These are static poses. Why static? Okay? It's a very interesting form of exercising also. Because remember, these were developed by the tapasvis, by the rishis, etc., who as it is were having low calorie intake. Okay? The calorie intake as it is was low. Therefore, they have to develop a system of exercise which will give you functional fitness without expending too much of calories. Can you see that? If the poses are too dynamic, like for example Surya Namaskara, which was added later on, okay, to yoga. That's a dynamic pose, a very good exercise. It will burn calories. It will build up your endurance, etc. Okay, so that's a dynamic form. Okay. Or if you do yoga vinyasa, where you do one asana after the another asana, you flow from one to the other, etc. That also help you burn some calories. But here the poses were static, and there is a reason for that. There is a reason for that. Why? A static pose, when you hold a pose, any pose, For those of people who don't understand the yoga pose, take a simple pose like plank position. Everyone knows that. Balance your own body only on hands and feet, flat, perpendicular to, parallel to the ground. Plank position. Or any other yoga pose it can be. It helps generate the bioelectrical energy in the body. Your cellular energy, it helps to generate more. It helps to generate what is known as tendon strength. Not muscle strength so much, tendon strength. Tendons are more important than the muscles. Because if your tendons are weak and muscles are strong, you will end up with injuries. So, very good form of exercising in that sense. Okay. Therefore, these are the asanas. Developing bioelectrical energy, and this is as far as health is concerned. As far as the mind is concerned, you are supposed to hold an asana and hold in it. Be completely aware of what the sensations in your body. Therefore, what? The seed for meditation is placed in the asana itself. Just by holding the asana, you are just witnessing what is happening in the body. Therefore, your mind is also already set in a groove for meditation. Okay. Given that, he mentions a few asana. And he classifies it as Brahma, Vaishnavam, Raudram, etc. Okay. Because many people who invoked these devatas did it in these postures. That's why. Swastikam Gomukam Padmam Hamsakhyam Brahmanasanam Narasimham Garudam Kurmam Nagakhyam Vaishnavasanam Veeram Mayuram Vajrakhyam Siddhakyam Raudramasanam Yaunyasanam Vishuddha Shaktam Shaivam Paschimataanakam. Okay. He is just mentioning it because he can't give a description about all this in a book of Vedanta. Okay. This book is meant to be Vedanta. This is by just for preparation. So these asanas you are supposed to learn from a teacher. Okay. Swastikasana, it's a sitting pose. Gomukham, difficult sitting pose. Okay. Padmam, Hamsasanam, all these are Brahma Asanam, where you are trying to make yourself more sattvic. It helps, it's conducive for that. Then Narasimham, Garudam, Garudasanam, Kurmasanam, Nagasanam. These are all meant to as worship for Vishnu. Therefore, Vishnu is a devata for it. Therefore, if you are going to contemplate on any deity in these asanas, contemplate on Vishnu. Then Veeram Mayuram, Veerasanam, Mayurasanam, Vajrakhyam, Siddhakyam and Siddhasana, etc. These are all Raudramasanam. Shiva is a presiding deity. Therefore, you go for that. Yoni Asanam Vishuddha Shaktam. Okay. Yoni Asanam. If you all want to know what these asanas are, contact Falguni or Anusha after the class. Okay. They will tell you. Yoni Asanam is Shaktam for the worship of Devi. And what about Shiva? Paschimataanakam, Paschimataanasana. How you are going to worship Shiva in that asanam? Don't ask me, okay? I don't do all those. Okay. I don't do all this. My worship is different. Okay. Alright. Therefore, now, what does it imply? That each asana had a devata. There was a time when each asana had a prayer also. Most of it is lost. That aspect is lost, not available. None of the yoga teachers whom I have spoken to know about these. Okay? Each asana had a deity, each asana had a prayer. I am not talking about what is created by the Santa Cruz School of Yoga. Okay? Where they talk of bhavas, etc. No. That's all their creation. It is not there in any of the classical texts on yoga. Okay? And I don't think that classification is fully right as well. Okay? The bhavas that they attribute are not in harmony with what it is, with what the asanas are. Okay? Therefore, but each asanas can have a bhava, and that bhava is revealed. Bhava is an emotion, an attitude of being. That asana is revealed in the name of the asana, and you can use that for contemplation, like Parvatasana. So you sit in Parvatasana or stand in Parvatasana. There are sitting Parvatasana, standing Parvatasana. And then what? Look at the mountain in your life, the mountain that you want to climb. Look at the mountainous obstacles in your life that you have to overcome. Contemplate and be aware of that. Vrikshasanam. You stand like a tree. Rootedness. Develop your ability to stay rooted. How rooted a tree is. It's not easy to shake a tree. It requires a huge cyclone to uproot a tree. Therefore, like a tree, you are rooted. So, learn to root yourself in that asana. There are methods of doing it, okay? To be rooted. How the energy has to flow through your system into the ground, and the earth energy flows into your system. Rooted there. Vrishikasana. Vrikshasana. Bhujangasanam, like the snake. Snake is slithering beauty and power. Okay. Snake is not betrayal, that became later, okay? Bhujangasana. So what is it? In what way can you have that flexibility and power in your life, in your attitude towards things? So like this, each name of every asana will give you a bhava associated with it. That's why it was named. Otherwise, why should it be named? You could have just said exercise 1, exercise 2, exercise 3, gone by number. No, but it was named. It was named because the name reveals a bhava, and it can be done differently. Okay? The seeds of meditation are laid right here in the asana itself. Okay. Any questions on this, or is it okay to go ahead? When I ask a question, I don't like the sound of silence.
Swamiji, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Swamiji,
Yeah?
this kind of classification, like
Yeah.
Brahma, Asana, and
Yeah.
Vaishnava, and Raudra, and Shiva,
Yeah.
I have not heard, because I have been to 4 or 5 schools of yoga,
Yeah.
different schools, but nowhere I have heard about this kind of classification.
You will find it in some of the Yoga Upanishads.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll find it there. That's what he is referring to. Yeah. But what is the asana to meditate on the reality? Because we are all seeking Brahman, the truth, the reality. Okay. This is my favorite asana. Okay, that is talked about here in the next verse. What is the asana to relate to, meditate, contemplate on the reality itself? Interested in that? Here it is there. Niralambana yogasya niralambana masanam niralambataya dhyanam niralamba sada shivaha. Niralambaha sada shivaha. Ishvara himself, niralambaha. That reality, not dependent on anything, independent of everything else. The whole world, the whole cosmos is dependent on the reality. The reality, Ishvara, independent of all of them. Niralambaha. Therefore, what is the dhyanam? Niralambataya dhyanam. What is the dhyanam that you will do there? Not on a form, on that reality itself. That reality itself. Therefore, this is called Niralambana Yoga. Because Chitta Vritti Nirodha is yoga, Rupa. Patanjali's definition. Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Okay, mastery of the mind. Samadhi is the highest. Alright. Therefore, if Samadhi, we are now doing Niralambana Yoga. We are resolving in our mind in that which is independent of everything. Therefore, what is the asanam I will use for that? Niralambanam asanam. The asana is also not dependent on anything. What is that asanam? Whatever you choose. Huh?
Sukhasanam.
Whatever you choose to be. Wherever the mind can think, can resolve itself into the reality of Ishvara, that is the asanam for you. Don't give it a name. There is no name. Like sitting on a chair and doing it, do that. Like sitting on the ground and doing that, do that. Yat sukhena brahma chintanam bhavati. What is the definition of sukhasanam, you know? Sukhena brahma chintanam bhavati. Yatra sukhena brahma chintanam bhavati. Where very happily you can think of Brahman. You can contemplate on Brahman very happily. That is called sukhasanam. No, don't say sukha. Therefore, don't say sukhasanam should be done like this. My asanam is niralambanam asanam. Why? To think of that which is independent of everything else, you be independent of everything else. What particular asanam? Are you dependent on asanam for contemplation? I can't contemplate unless I sit like this. Contemplation is here, not on your body. In the beginning, a particular asana, etc., may help you, that's okay. Otherwise, it'll be like this student, you know. For a couple of years, he went to a martial art class. Okay? For a couple of years, he went in a martial art class. Then somebody on the street bashed him up. So when he went back to the class with the black eye and everything, his sensei asked him, "What happened to you? I taught you for 2 years. Why couldn't you fight back? What was the point in learning all this martial arts?" Sensei, I was not in my karate dress at that time. So if you are not in your gi, in your dress, you can't fight back. Oh, you know, you don't feel like a... This is as stupid. Unless I sit here, I can't contemplate on that. ये क्या बात है? निरालंबनम, independent totally. You are not dependent on anything. Therefore, you don't insist on any particular position. Yes, in the beginning when we teach contemplation, we say, yeah, keep your back erect, keep your spine erect, relax your body, etc. Be in a comfortable position. Because if you are slumping, spine is not erect, and if you are slumping, you will create a constriction in your lungs, etc. As it is, your breathing slows down in meditation. Then if you are creating further constriction, it will be a problem. Therefore, don't do that. Just keep your body erect, etc. So simple things like that. Anyway, you are supposed to keep your spine erect, whatever you do. You are not supposed to be slouching around. My spine is very erect when I am practicing. Other times I slouch. No. You are not supposed to slouch at any time. Okay? Therefore, that is as far as the asana, etc. is concerned. Then pranayamas. Now pranayama is a huge topic by itself. Okay? In fact, I am not happy with many of the yoga classes because they will take 1 hour of asanas and 10 minutes of pranayama. The focus should be more on the pranayama, or at least an equal measure on the pranayama and the asana. Okay? In fact, some schools of yoga don't teach pranayama. I am appalled. How can they call themselves a school? It says pranayama is what will naturally happen. Pranayama doesn't naturally happen. Breathing happens naturally. Breathing happens naturally. Pranayama is by choice, what you do. Therefore, he is not mentioning much here. He is just saying just this much. Rechakaha purvakaschaiva Kumbakaha Prana Samyamaha. It says Prana Samyamaha. You control your energy by controlling your breathing. Okay? What is that? Rechakaha, emptying out. Purakaschaya, filling in. Kumbakaha, holding. Can be Bahyam or Antara. Okay? This is Prana Samyama. By this, you gain a mastery over the prana. Okay? He doesn't want to mention too much here. Because pranayama practice, of course, our modern classes teach very few. Therefore, there is not much of problems involved. But if you are doing advanced pranayamas, you have to be monitored, okay, by the teacher, at least on a weekly basis, with the condition that if you find anything going off in your system, you will contact him immediately. And he is available for contact. It's important when you are teaching pranayama to be like that, especially the advanced pranayamas, etc. There are more than 100 pranayamas. About 7-8 of them are taught in most yoga schools. Okay? But there are over 100 of them. But they are for advanced practices, etc. Only if you need to do that, not otherwise. Therefore, he just mentioned this much and leaves it. Okay? Because, yeah, keeping the body full of oxygen is how you are building up, again, the energy systems in yourself. Emptying it and holding it also has a value there, because your body has to learn to function with no oxygen also, no immediate refueling. Your body has to learn to function. Therefore, that Bahya Kumbhaka also becomes important. In fact, in our martial training, etc., we empty out our breath and do activity, push-ups, knuckle push-ups. 20-30 of them, if you can do, then you are okay. Why? Because your body has to learn to function without oxygen being supplied daily. There is enough oxygen in your system. There is enough air in your system, even if you have breathed out. In your lungs, it is there. The atmospheric pressure, air, that will be there. That much is always there. Therefore, to learn to function with minimum of that. Okay? Yeah. In fact, with pranayamas, etc., your heart comes to being. There are pranayamas by which you will stop your heartbeat. Just maybe 1 or 2 in a minute. Yeah, you will do that. But that's all advanced. That's why it has to be monitored. Don't worry, you can't hold your breath and kill yourself. Those who are practicing pranayamas don't have to be worried. If I don't breathe in and my breath is out, and if my teacher has told me to hold it as long as possible, I can die. Don't worry. Maximum that will happen is you will faint. Maximum. And then the autonomous nervous system will take over and you will start breathing and everything will become back to normal in a couple of minutes. Okay? So you don't have to be worried. Therefore, if you have been taught certain things, then in keeping with the instruction of the teacher, follow it and do it. Okay? These are all things to be done. They won't this is not change of attitudes, etc. Okay? These are things, asana, pranayama, etc. has to be done. Only by doing it, you will get some benefit out of it. And great way of developing your will. See, the subtle will that is necessary in spirituality is developed by pranayamas. The gross will can be developed by external activity. Play football. You're panting for breath, your legs are tired, but you still have to go and run and get that ball. Gross will. This is gross will. The subtle will is this. Feel like breathing in. No. Regulate it. Subtle. The will is used, but in a very subtle manner. Until a time comes when you can drop the will itself. That is the whole thing. Okay. Then after asana, pranayama, pratyahara. What is that? Indriyanam samastanam vishebhya nivaranam pratyahara iti proktam pratyahara arthavadbihi vedbihi. Those who know the meaning of the word pratyahara, he says, Indriyanam samastanam. All the sense organs. So vishebhya, from its own objects, sight, sound, etc., all objects, nivaranam, withdrawing anything. Pratyahara iti proktam. This is called as pratyahara. So there are two types of pratyahara. Okay. One, what you do at the seat of meditation. There you completely withdraw, cut off all external things as far as possible. You completely withdraw. Why? You don't want anything, any sense organ input disturbing you from your meditation. Therefore, you close your eyes, ears you can't stuff anyway, and it's not safe to stuff also. Therefore, you close, you put your shutters down, literally. Pratyahara practice before you do your dhyanam, etc. Pratyahara. Then there's another pratyahara in terms of application to your life. Here is where very many modern yoga teachers make a mistake. They'll tell their students, don't read the newspaper, don't read books, don't study more. Well, all pratyahara, na? Don't watch TV. Okay, that I can agree with. Okay, don't watch TV. But in what way is this pratyahara? You are living in society, should you not know what is happening in society? If somebody asks you, what is your opinion on what happens in Ladakh? Ladakh? What is that? Oh, kya ho gaya? Should you be in a position to say like that? Or do you need to know of what's happening in the society? COVID-19, what is that? You could be an idiot. Okay? You are supposed to be a functioning person in the society. Being a yogi does not make you an idiot. But doing things like that will make you an idiot. Therefore, what is pratyahara in day-to-day life? That's important. Pratyahara in day-to-day life will be not wasting your time in useless activities. Very different. Some of you, how do I know what is useless and useful? That question should have been asked 10 years ago, not today. Okay? And 10 years ago, I have said it also. To live by your priorities. Pratyahara would mean to live by your priorities and not waste time on things which are not important to you. Priorities are what are important to you. The need behind your desires are priorities. Therefore, live by them. But some entertainment, yes, good, healthy entertainment is good for you. So if there's something really interesting that you want to watch it. But don't sit in front of the TV at the whole day and go 1 to 2, 500, 500 to 1, 1 to 500. Nothing interesting. If nothing interesting, shut it down. No? Come back after an hour to see whether there is something interesting. Why are you sitting in front of it? That is wasting your energy, wasting your activity. Wasting your serotonin build up in your brain, all that is being wasted. That is not pratyahara. Pratyahara is when you something for entertainment. Yes, you need to relax up and things like that. Yeah, go for a walk. Go practice some yoga. Very relaxing. Very relaxing. Entertain yourself. Yes, please do. Listen to some good music. Watch a beautiful program. A really program that is informative, that can, or very, very well made. Watch it. Not wasting your time. Entertainment is important. How much? Half an hour in your life. Half an hour. 1 hour. Not 6 hours in front of the TV. That's not important. That's waste of time. Unless you are in the business of making serials and you need to know what the competition is like. Or you are in advertisement and you want to know what type of advertisements are coming on the TV. Then that's different. But I'm sure there are other professional ways of getting to know those things. Yeah. Therefore, the idea is this. If you are an ad film maker and you are watching advertisements, then the advertisements will become more important for you than the serials that are there. So you go for a drink of water or tea when the serial is on and come when the advertisement is on and watch it. Why? Because that's your priority. Perfectly fine, understandable. Therefore, to live by your priorities will be pratyahara in day-to-day life. Not doing foolish things like not reading, not studying and things like that. Okay. That's why I know there is one yoga guru who says that. Yeah. I am an illiterate guru. The character speaks in very literate manner, but he calls himself illiterate, misguiding people. Okay? Misguiding people. I am very awareful of all that's happening in the world. I'm sure he's watching TV, he's reading newspapers, everything. Okay? Well, otherwise, how will you know what's happening in the world? Therefore, this is called Pratyahara. Any questions or clarifications? Please ask.
No, sorry. No, sorry.
Sure, no questions.
I want to ask a question. Will Pratyahara include Shama also?
No, don't mix it up with all of
No,
those
no?
things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pratyahara is meant for not wasting your time in unnecessary activities. It can come a little bit under Dhamma.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. Okay. Then what is, after that, then what is the next step? Dharanam. Increasing your ability to focus on things is called Dharanam. He says, Adhare kopipsi manasastantapanam dharana uchyate. Kopi adhare, on any object. Okay. Manasaha samstapanam. To be able to focus on that is called dharanam. Okay. So dharanam is developing your focus. It can be, you can use anything to develop your focus. Your asana can be used to develop dharanam. Why? You're so focused on the dharanam, you're dead to the asana, you're dead to everything else. The whole mind is focused on that asana. Your whole mind is focused on your breathing patterns when you're doing pranayama. Focus. Many of you have been practicing yoga, do tratak, no? It can also be dharana, focus. Learn martial arts, very good to develop focus. Why? Because you will get hit if you otherwise. So you will develop focus very fast. Your focus will keep on developing very fast. You will get more and more focus if you learn martial arts. Why? Otherwise you are going to be whacked. You miss, you concentrate and look somewhere else, and this blow comes in from here. You find yourself on the ground, or you find yourself seeing stars. Yeah. Therefore, many ways of developing focus. Okay? You can use any activity to develop your focus. Cooking. You know, you must have all seen, at least on the TV, that famous Japanese tea ceremony. All focus, everything is focused activity. How you boil that water, how you take it out, how you put the tea leaves, how you rotate for the sugar in the tea to melt there, clockwise, anti-clockwise moving, all total focus. Any activity can be used to develop your focus. Dharana. Any questions?
No, sorry.
So that means all of you will be very focused. I'm sure some of you missed some of the sentences I spoke. Why? Because your focus requires some more focus. And this is not hocus pocus I'm talking about, okay? Now, after dharana, after you have learned to focus your mind, you will move into dhyanam, contemplation. Now, what is that? Very nicely he puts it. Brahma Vishnu Shivadinam Chinta Dhyanam Prachashvakate. Dhyanam is contemplating on Ishvara in any form, he says. Okay. Therefore, Dhyanam is what? Same thing as what we say Upasana. Contemplation, meditation. Saguna Brahma Vishaye Manasa Vyapara. Saguna Brahma Vishaye. Okay. Why? Because two things happen. The main thing is to get a contemplative mind. Your mind needs to become contemplative so that the truth is clear for you. So to develop a contemplative mind. Other is when you relate to Ishvara, you're close to understanding the reality. Ishvara is everything and the truth of Ishvara and I are non-different. One more step. Therefore, the more you contemplate on Ishvara, etc., the closer you are in understanding reality. Plus, that Sarvatma Bhava can be there only if you understand Ishvara, which will come later, but you are laying the groundwork for it. Without understanding Ishvara, there is no Sarvatma Bhava. That I am everything cannot be said unless you understand what Ishvara is. Therefore, Ishvara becomes very important in learning Vedanta. There is no Nirishvara Vedanta, okay? There is no Nirishvara Vedanta. There can have a Nirishvara Sankhya, but there is no Nirishvara Vedanta. There is no Nirishvara Yoga also. In fact, Yoga is called Saishvara Sankhya. When Sankhya we handle the idea of Ishvara, then it becomes Yoga. Therefore, Ishvara becomes a very important part. The more you understand Ishvara, the better Karma Yogi you are. The better Karma Yogi you are, the better the mind is prepared. All the kleshas that you talk about in yoga gets negated sheer by Karma Yoga. Kleshas are all the impurities of the mind. All that thing can be taken care of by Karma Yoga. Therefore, Ishvara becomes important. Therefore, meditation on Ishvara. Remember, in the Yama Niyama, you did Kayika Puja, etc. If you look at it, in the Niyamas, you did Japa, you did worship, Homa, you did Pradikshana, etc. All that you did. External. Now what you have done with Dhyanam, moved it internal. Say Manasa Puja, for example. What you do outside, you have made it inside. So from your focus from the external world has shifted into your internal world. Because finally, where do you recognize the truth? Truth is not out there. You recognize the truth here. The truth is out there, the truth is right here. Everywhere the truth is there. But your Upalabdhi Sthanam, the place of recognition, is the I. Therefore, you are shifting focus from your external worship to internally worshipping Ishvara. That internal worship is called Dhyanam. That internal worship is Dhyanam. Clear about this?
Yes, sir.
Sure. No questions? Well, maybe you all should think about it, because questions will come up, okay, if you are thinking about it. Then, after Dhyanam, the next stage is Samadhi. Samadhi is shifted into Savikalpa, Nirvikalpa both. Both is handling in one verse. Dhyanat aspandanam buddhehe samadhi abhidiyate anasmakam samadhistu sarvachinta vivarjitam. Dhyanat aspandanam buddhehe. In dhyana, let us say you are contemplating on Vishnu, and the mind is resolved in Vishnutvam. Is resolved in Vishnu. There is no more spandanam. Aspandanam is Dhyanad aspandanam buddhe. Mind is not projecting, oh, Vishnu was like this, he took so much avatars, I like Krishna avatara best. No, I prefer Parashurama. That type of spandanam is not there. Yes, Vishnu, and that's it. That is Samadhi abhidiyate. Therefore, there is a difference of the seer and seen in this is talking about Savikalpa Samadhi. There is a difference of seer and seen here. You are the one contemplating on Vishnu, your mind is resolved in Vishnu, and you are sitting there. This is called Samadhi. Then he says, Amanaska Samadhi tu. Whereas if the Samadhi is Amanaskaha, where the mind is not there at all, he says that is Sarva Chinta Vivarjitam. All thoughts are negated. All thoughts are gone. So when there is no thought of Vishnu also, only I. That is called Nirvikalpa. Therefore, if you look at it carefully, you will have two types of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. One is just cessation of all thoughts, which is possible by sheer practice. By sheer use of will, your subtle will is involved, you can do that. But Nirvikalpa Samadhi by itself does not grant you any great realization. Though some of the teachers, modern teachers, emphasize Samadhi so much. In fact, this champion whom I know, he says, if I want to know anything, I just sit quiet and I'll know it. How will he know it? Without a pramana. No, Swamiji is connecting up with Ishvara's mind. Then he is not sitting quiet. He is doing something, no? Connecting up. And really speaking, to know what is for lunch, should I be connecting with Ishvara's mind to find out what is there for lunch? I was just going to the kitchen and peep what my cook has cooked. This is like my old example. You are using a samurai sword to cut vegetables in the kitchen. Is my sword, my vegetables I can cut? Of course you can cut. Nobody is saying no. But you are abusing that sword. That sword is meant to cut through flesh and steel. To go through. It is meant to be in battle or in training. It is not meant for vegetables in the kitchen. You are abusing that sword. Similarly, if I want to know what is in the kitchen, I am going to sit my mind and connect with Ishvara's mind and know there. I am abusing that ability. And believe me, a day will come and Ishvara's mind will say, forget it. This character is abusing it, I'll shut it down. He is not treating me with the respect it deserves. Therefore, when you are saying it, there is Samadhi which is only quietening the mind, sitting still, without any great knowledge or anything. It is great control over the mind. Why? Mind can think when you want it to think. Mind can shut up when you want it to shut up. It's a great ability. It's a height of mastery you are ever capable of achieving. The height of mastery you are ever capable of achieving will be this. Think when you want, shut up when you don't want. Most of us cannot do that. Most of us can think when we want, but the problem is we think when we don't want also. And all sorts of thought we don't want also comes inside. Therefore, this type of samadhi, where there may not be any great knowledge or realization or anything, is also important in terms of mastery. You may not want to go up to that, but at least up to dhyanam you will want to go. Savikalpa you will want to go, because that will give you that great control and focus. Therefore, the Nirvikalpa Samadhi without jnanam etc. is important only for mastery. And your mind will be a contemplative mind. And that's beautiful. To get a contemplative mind is beautiful as it is. Any questions on this Nirvikalpa Samadhi? Or no
Yes,
question?
Swamiji.
Huh?
I have one question, Swamiji.
Please ask.
You Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there are two aspects. So one you said cessation of thoughts.
Yeah.
What is the second one?
Second one is where your mind is resolved into the reality with knowledge.
Okay.
See, when you already know that you are the all-pervading awareness, you are that consciousness which is limitless, and you are contemplating on that, and the mind is resolved in that recognition. Oh yes, akhandakara vritti. When the mind is resolved in that, says yes, that is true, and the mind dies down there. That is jnana samadhi, where you are getting into nirvikalpa samadhi with knowledge.
Okay.
When you come out of the second samadhi, this type of samadhis, nirvikalpa samadhi with knowledge, you come out full of this wisdom in you, because it has now gone into your heart very well. In the first type of samadhi, only nirvikalpa samadhi, you come out with a great control of your mind, but nothing else. You remember the story I used to tell you about this man who was buried in the sand at Chaupati?
Yes, Swamiji.
Yeah. So that is nirvikalpa samadhi without jnanam. After coming out of that samadhi, he is not saying Anandoham or anything. He is looking at the collection that his students have got. 2 or 3 chelas are there, he has got. I think, Saab khali 10 ये क्या मायापुरी है? 10 रुपया मिला. I got $10. 4 hours I am in samadhi, and for that people have given me $10. He is disappointed there. He is not saying Anandoham, etc. So just sitting quiet and resolving your mind does not guarantee you knowledge. But if you have gone into nirvikalpa samadhi before, like I know one teacher who says he has not learned anything, he just went into samadhi. But I know that his students came up and picked up books that's written by Puja Swamiji and gave it to him. I know that. Okay. If after you have gone to nirvikalpa samadhi, you look into the pramana and understand what you experienced, then that mind can understand easier. That mind does not require elaborate 10 years of teaching. Okay? With one Gita, one Upanishad, etc., that mind will be able to understand. Why? Because it has gone through certain experiences in life, like this of nirvikalpa samadhi, when you understand yourself as independent, as independent of everything else. Therefore, nirvikalpa samadhi is the practice of nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is what you practice, where you bring into the mind all the knowledge, etc. Nirvikalpa samadhi happens. You keep doing nididhyasana, focusing on the truth, focusing on the knowledge of the truth. Take one word, consciousness, limitlessness, shuddham, jnanam, whatever, and work on it. Contemplate, bring in all the learning that you have had. Nirvikalpa may happen, may not happen. Okay? Like sleep, may happen, may not happen. So similarly, nirvikalpa is something, jnana samadhi happens. Even the other way, you practice savikalpa samadhi, nirvikalpa happens. With knowledge, without knowledge, in both the cases. You practice nididhyasanam, then your jnana samadhi may happen. Need not happen. Nididhyasanam is good enough. If it doesn't happen, don't worry about it. Nididhyasanam is good enough for it. Are you getting the idea what it is about? Any questions?
Yes.
Have you understood what I am saying? Because that question came up about nididhyasana. Is that clear?
Yes, Swamiji.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Then with that, it's a good place to stop. Okay, with samadhi, there is some more, etc. All that we will see next class. Okay. Om Tat Sat.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
so when you said nididhyasana is like a deliberate acting, whereas this nirvikalpa samadhi, akhandakara vritti is a happening. There is
Yeah,
a
it has to happen. Nirvikalpa samadhi, for a length of time, if you are going to sit on it, it has to happen by itself.
Okay.
You can't say I am practicing Nirvikalpa. You are practicing Savikalpa because there your effort is involved.
Correct.
When that effort drops,
Ah,
you are in Nirvikalpa.
okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay? It's a good place to stop.
Thank you, Swami.
Om Tat Sat.